Sri Kumaraswamy College, Ausa, which is in District Latur, State Maharashtra, finds this opportunity of International E-Conference to welcome all the honorable dignitaries, participants and delegates here at the virtual platform. The topic of today's International E-Conference is Neurodiversity and Learning. The college, Sri Kumaraswamy College, Ausa, is affiliated to Swami Ramananda Tirth Marathwada University, Nanded. The college undertakes number of innovative activities for the benefit of students, researchers, teachers, academicians, intellectuals, and knowledge seekers. The World Record Webinar Series and national and international interconferences are the part of innovative activities which are conducted by the college. And all these activities are going on very smoothly without interruption and successfully. And behind it, there are efforts of Chief Organizer, Honorable Principal Dr. M. Ambedkar, sir. Sir, I welcome you as the presiding authority and chairman of today's International E-Conference. At the same time, today I feel immense pleasure to welcome honorable dignitary, chief guest and keynote speaker who is among us from Belgrade, Serbia, Honorable Jacky Aguilar Zamboni ma'am, who is going to enlighten us on the topic neurodiversity and learning. And before the actual commencement of keynote speech, I would like to introduce briefly the chief guest and keynote speaker. Honorable ma'am is learning and development expert. She has experience in HR as a consultant and trainer. She is prepared for US and non-residents. She is seasoned language instructor and translator in English, French, Spanish, German, Romanian, and Serbo-Croatian languages. She is avid traveler. She is animal lover, activist, and donor. She is also human rights activist. And today we are very fortunate to listen the keynote speech from such a versatile personality who is among us. And so, on behalf of the organizing committee of International E-Conference, Sri Kumaraswamy College, Ausa, I request you, ma'am, to start your keynote speech and presentation. Please, ma'am, welcome.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I just wanted to give a little bit about myself. My background is in business. I got a bachelor's degree in the US. I got a master's in occupational therapy in Canada, and I worked as an occupational therapist with children who are neurodiverse and have autism, ADHD, and so on. And I got my PhD in organizational psychology in Germany. And I work with both adults and children who are neurodiverse. By neurodiversity, I mean people who have a variety of cognitive functioning and difficulties, for example, with learning, writing, people who have autism, ADHD. So it's a wide variety of different conditions that they might have, and they present differently. So that's a little bit more about myself. I'm very happy to be here today, and I will start my presentation now. Let me just see from my window. Just a moment. I have it here. Here it is. So here is my presentation. I hope you can all see it. First, to start off, I wanted to share a very important statistics on neurodiversity, and that is that about 1 billion people in the world are neurodiverse. So about 15% of the population is neurodiverse. That is a lot of people. 1 in 7 people in the world are neurodiverse. And that's almost like 70% of the population in India. So can you imagine that many people? And these people have a lot of difficulty in the educational system. They're often left out of the educational system. Did you know that this huge population with such a huge potential is often not really is misunderstood, misdiagnosed, or simply left out in the educational process, but also when it comes to the world of work? They might be labeled as lazy, distracted, or unmotivated, or simply wired. They're just simply wired differently. But here is the good news. There is a better way. By embracing neurodiversity, that means understanding people who have autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, who have difficulties processing the sensory environment. We are using their full potential. They're happier, more productive later, and we can unlock their full potential of every student and every adult. Imagine a world where neurodiverse individuals are celebrated and not marginalized, not labeled as lazy or dumb, or a world where they're given the tools and support they need to succeed, rather than being held back by outdated educational practices. So, what are we waiting for? Please join me today in talking about neurodiversity and learning. And here it is. The topic, as I said, is embracing neurodiversity in education, understanding and supporting different learners. For this session, the purpose of this presentation and this session is to explore how embracing neurodiversity can transform educational landscapes. And the expected outcomes are greater awareness and some practical strategies for educators. As I said, I've worked with schools and with parents in Canada, as well as in Nigeria and as in Germany, on these strategies for children. I've worked on these strategies in the US, Germany, and Serbia for adults. And I'm presenting what I've personally learned on this journey. So what is neurodiversity? As I said, neurodiversity refers to the difference in cognitive functioning. So in the way brain processes the world, the stimuli, the light, the letters, and so on. So it causes neurological differences. So basically how people see numbers, how they see letters, and these neurodiversity is an umbrella term for conditions such as autism, attention deficit ADHD, so attention deficit disorder, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and so many others. So problems with reading, problems with writing. And these are just natural variations in the human brain. This is what I want to get across. It's not a condition that should be treated, more so that the environment needs to be adjusted. As I said, neurodiversities are all of these different conditions, epilepsy as well, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, developmental language disorder. And there is so much diversity within neurodiversity itself, as people and children and adults with neurodiversity represent themselves with different challenges. So it's not one symptom or one challenge. What does this mean for education? If we recognize neurodiversity and cognitive diversity, so just understanding that people learn differently, this will foster, yes? Oh, yeah, I'm sharing them, but I'm not understanding why it's not sharing. Wait. Okay. So they should be now. Okay. So implication for education is recognizing cognitive diversity fosters an inclusive teaching practices, that we need to tailor instruction to accommodate various learning styles and preferences. And this will improve overall learning. So even if children are not neurodiverse, having a more inclusive learning environment will provide them with better learning outcomes. Impact on learning. Diverse brains mean diverse learning, and there is a need for inclusion. Every learner deserves to thrive. I will double check if my slides are changing. So next slide, our neurodiverse strengths. And I just wanted to say that often, though, people who are neurodiverse, so we have autism, ADHD, Asperger's, and so on, are labeled as not so smart or lazy or problematic. They have unique abilities. In fact, people who are neurodiverse show a higher level of creativity, problem solving, because they're able to think outside of the box, bring in a different perspective, hyper focus. People who have autism often are very good in mathematics and programming, for example. So neurodiversity is not a deficit, it's a superpower. I will now show you some people who are neurodiverse, who are very successful. Here we see famous neurodiverse individuals. Elon Musk, people say that he was autistic. Tesla as well. ADHD, Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs. So these are very famous people, very successful, who all have been, so to say, labeled as neurodiverse. So neurodiversity does not stop people from being successful and, in fact, in front of their time, so to say. What are some common challenges, common learning challenges for people who are neurodiverse? One of them could be problems with reading, with writing, with focusing, so attention disorder, learning social cues, so understanding when somebody else is upset or sad, understanding emotions of others. That brings issues around socialization with other children. Then we have issues, challenges, for example, with expressing own emotions. So they're not able to express anger in a proper way. Then there are, apart from common learning challenges, they are facing social stigma and misconceptions. As I said, social stigma could be that they're not that smart, that they are special, they're not good learners, they could not be good students. Later on, I see in the in the workplace that people think that people who are neurodiverse are not mentally stable, or I hear all kinds of different stuff. This is what I'm focused on. In fact, at my last company, we started 2 different programs to integrate people who are neurodiverse in the workplace. So there is a lot of social stigma and misconceptions around neurodiversity, around ADHD, around autism, and so on. And there are different barriers in education. mostly coming from conventional, very rigid teaching methods. People who are neurodiverse, they need adaptation, modification of the curricula, and they need different forms of support. And sometimes the school, the teachers do not have enough time or knowledge or understanding of this. This is what I've seen in my work in Canada. I've seen it in Germany. I've seen it in Nigeria. So in different countries, different socioeconomic status, we've seen these challenges. So here are some common myths around people who are neurodiverse. As I said, it's a myth that neurodiverse individuals are less intelligent and capable. Sometimes, as we've seen with Elon Musk or with Tesla or with Steve Jobs, they're more successful. They just see and process the world in another way. Neurodiversity is not a disorder. It's not a deficit. It's just another way of the functioning of the brain. Myth: neurodiverse individuals cannot succeed academically or professionally. They can. I've had children that were really good at math or were really good in sports, for example. So it doesn't impact them in such a way. It's just that the environment needs to have an understanding, especially teachers and parents. Neurodiverse traits should be fixed or eliminated. I would say no. This is a myth. People who are neurodiverse sometimes do need some medication to help them cope with some elements of neurodiversity, for example, with high anxiety or things like that. But when it really comes down to it, it's the environment. I really truly believe in this. I've seen very successful examples of this of a good environment in schools in Canada, where really we as therapists and working together with parents and with children and with everybody, were able to overcome these challenges. Obviously, we need to put in the effort, but the effort really pays off, because then the children are more included, happier, and later on productive, and then later on able to join the work to work. Here is around, we're talking here about neurodiversity and learning styles. So neurodiverse individuals process and perceive information differently. So for example, it does sometimes happen that neurodiverse individuals become overstimulated with so much light, movement. That really depends. And they need a quiet space where they can calm down. So that would be one strategy. Or they need more movement. 45 minutes to an hour sitting for some neurodiverse students is too much. So we would introduce a movement break where the child could go and jump for like 2-3 minutes, or go round or do something, so they can, refocus their attention and calm down. Some have visual challenges. Some have auditory, so very susceptible to different auditory sounds. Some learn on the other side by touching. So we've had these techniques where the children will learn through touch, much more than just the teachers telling or showing, but really touching. This would be, for example, playing with Play-Doh, creating something, working with different kind of textiles and different materials. So that would be another strategy that we implemented. Here is a story that I wanted to share with you today. I've worked with this girl in Canada. So she is 11 years old. Her name, I named her Mary. She had another name in real life. She was diagnosed with autism, and she was excelling in math. but had some other issues. For example, some challenges around her not knowing what's next, so anxiety, recognizing social cues, so understanding, for example, when she does something, how the others react to that. So we work very closely with Mary's parents and teachers and everybody on creating different kind of first curriculum that was more appropriate to her needs. Second, adapting the environment to her. So she would have this fidget toy. So that would be a toy that she could spin around when she would get anxious. That would help her focus. Also, another thing that I suggested is that when she gets anxious, that was one of the issues, is to put her hands under her knees, so she's kind of sitting on her hands. Deep pressure helps people who are anxious, not just neurodiverse individuals. We also introduced a daily schedule calendar where she knew exactly what activity would go after what activity. She had some challenges with overstimuli from the environment, just too much going on, auditory especially. So we suggested that she wore these like headphones to eliminate or reduce the sound when she would need this. We also worked very closely with her on getting her feedback, on understanding her needs. And there is a program that I work with her on called Know Your Engine. This means that when a child is getting overstimulated, just cannot handle what's going on in the environment, she would get upset and then angry and wouldn't know how to control her emotion and would throw a tantrum, which is not good. Then that would obviously lead her to be labeled as a problematic child and so on and so forth. So I taught her this strategy called Know Your Engine, which means that the teacher or her aide, if she had a school aide for a while, an educational aide that worked with her and two other kids, or her parents. If I asked her, how are you, Mary, right now? She would say green. Green would mean that she is totally calm, nothing is upsetting her, she's not anxious. Yellow would already mean that she is very upset. So we work with her on learning how to recognize her own emotions and her inability to control them. So before she gets to red, it's like green, yellow, red. Red would be that she is throwing a tantrum. She cannot control her emotions anymore. Already in the yellow zone, she would recognize this and go to a quiet corner when she's not with the other children, or tell the teacher, or just not get to this red level of upsetness. And with all of these and the value of predictable routines, so for people with autism, these predictable routines are very helpful because that reduces anxiety from the unknown. She was very good at, going to school, and in fact, she really excelled in math. As I said, people with autism very often are successful in math. Given that there is not a lot of time, I will go through this very quickly. So some educational strategies overview. When you're thinking about adapting the curriculum or adapting or working with children who have autism, the focus should be adaptability. So not rigidity and not, your way does not have to be the best way. You need to work with the child on the best way that suits them. Patience and personalized learning plans. So differentiated instruction, assistive technology. Does she need do they need text-to-speech software, for example? Do they need some kind of other chair? Do they need a vest that they could wear when they get upset? Quiet room where they could, spend time with themselves. themselves? Do they need to run around for 1 minute or two, or jump, or do something that will just get this anxiety out of their body? And also another thing is that we need to teach children and adults who are neurodiverse self-advocacy and metacognition. So self-advocacy is that they talk about their needs and that it's not anything bad that they have these different cognitive functions, and that with the right environment and accommodation and talking to your teacher later on, to your manager or your boss when you're working, you can be as productive or even more productive than your colleagues. And metacognition, this program Know Your Engine is an example of that. So to teach children to recognize the way they're thinking, to recognize what's going on inside of their body, and to be able to overcome this. So as I said, classrooms sometimes need to be structured yet flexible. This is an example on the picture of the quiet time where children just have time with themselves. There are different tools and techniques that could be used, like schedules, visual timers, movement breaks where children are able to move around. Social stories are stories where we say, okay, so Mary, you got upset last time. This is what happened. Then you threw a tantrum. Now let's talk through this and let's see next time what we could do differently, where we draw out like, this is what you did, these are the decisions that you make. Next time we could make different decisions, for example. Differentiated instruction, as I said, is to adapt the curriculum itself to the needs of the children. Here is an example of learning through touch and learning through movement, where children are getting to know how to do something like a task by using their hands, movement, touching. So it's not just they're sitting and listening. And the role of you educators and of us therapists is very important. This is not just teaching. This is about adapting and advocating about children who are neurodiverse. And that's why teachers and therapists need to have empathy, flexibility, and continuously learning, because we're learning about the brain and this neurodiversity every day. We're learning something new. Parent and community involvement is very important. So working closely with parents is something that I've seen to be as the most successful way of doing things. So how can you assess progress on these programs? You can use measurement tools, like, for example, their grades, but you can also use feedback mechanisms. I would talk to the children, to the parents, to the teachers, to see what's going on, and if these strategies are successful, what we could adapt. So this is something that also the teacher can check. Is this working? And asking the child, how is that working for them and the parents? Future directions in neurodiversity education is that we're learning, as I said, more and more about the brain. There are different software solutions. There is also AI that could help people who are neurodiverse. And aspirations for the next decade is really including people who are neurodiverse in the workplace. So I'm really working hard at every company. This is what I do when I consult companies in Germany, is to include as many people who are neurodiverse in the workplace, and to work and adapt for those who are not, who didn't say that they are when they got the job, but really later on you can see that they're struggling. As I said, 1 in 7 individuals are neurodiverse. 1 billion people, that's a huge amount of people that are neurodiverse. So these are, our neighbors, our friends, could be anybody really, and we cannot afford, to have them not be happy and not be part of society, not working. So as such, my job is to really work with them, the company, and everybody on, including them in the workplace, including them in the educational system, and helping them thrive. So couple of take-home messages. As I said, neurodiversity is a strength, not a weakness. It's just a different way of brain functioning. Different diverse learning styles should be the norm, not the exception. So one style, one way of learning is not this. It doesn't fit everybody. Like we know, for example, that some learn better by listening, some by doing, some by hearing the information. So this difference is for everybody. It doesn't have to be only for individuals who are neurodiverse. Accommodating neurodiversity is essential for success. Neurodivergent individuals are natural problem solvers and creative thinkers. Learning is a dynamic process, and all students have the potential to succeed. So I'm calling upon you. Call to action is to take these first steps towards creating a more inclusive and supporting learning environment, to learn about neurodiversity, to have empathy, understanding, patience, explore ways to accommodate different learning styles. There's so much on the internet around this. Encourage and support neurodivergent students and their parents. And together we can create a better learning environment, but overall a better world that empowers innovation and creativity, because that's also something that we have seen. Some of the best people who work on AI are diagnosed with autism. As I've said, we have very successful people who have been labeled as neurodiverse. So that's it, 30 minutes from me. I hope I didn't speak too fast. There was a lot of material that I wanted to get through, and that's me. So you can also email me, or you can contact me via LinkedIn. I'm very happy to answer any of your questions or anything like that. Neurodiversity is my passion and something I've been working on for many years, especially since I started in 2012. So more than 12 years of experience in this field, both in the educational and the world of work. Thank you so much. I'm not able to hear you. I think you're muted. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, madam.
Hello.
Am I audible, madam? Can we have any interesting system? Yeah. Can we diverse those people who are mentally retarded? Any particular system to train them?
Well, I would say, if we're talking about people who are lower on the cognitive level, I would say, I mean, there were two different styles. Before, in most of the Western world, I don't know how it is in India right now, we've had separate schools. But now we see that it's better for them, for everybody to be included. And mostly what we see for those individuals is that we adapt the curriculum, we adapt the environment, and sometimes they need additional assistance. Like in Canada, we have educational aides who work with those children in particular. So it depends on how severe this cognitive retardation is. But I would say that if it's not too severe, if you just have the right mindset and if you adapt the curriculum, just simplify the tasks, break them down, give them more time, they would be able to reach a certain level of performance.
Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you. Thank you for your valuable suggestion. My son is a Down syndrome boy. I am working as a principal FSC at Government Degree College, Vijayanagaram. I have that type of child. He is now 30
Okay.
years old. I hope this is also useful for you for a case study.
I would say that, you know, if with the right environment, with the right teacher, and then later on in the world of work with the right boss, you can do a lot of great things. It's really the stigma and not putting in the extra time that's stopping a lot of these people from being, you know, happy and productive and successful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your valuable suggestion, madam. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Dr. Bedkar, sir, Principal, sir. And good afternoon, ma'am. At your place, I think it is 3 o'clock now. Wonderful presentation you have made regarding the neurodiversity, and I'm also belong to medical field, and I have worked with some neurodiversity children, and I have presented my paper, and I think most of them were in autism condition and ADHD, dyslexia and dyspraxia, and other conditions were there. So I had seen that, it is we cannot go with a regular class like ordinary students for them. We have to focus because everyone has their different dimensions, and we had to learn and we had to accept those dimensions, and that is how we had to proceed for our teaching. What I feel, when I was working with them very closely, so every individual is a different class for me. So that is how we had to work with these kind of kids. And a very important thing is, we should not make them realize that, they are having something. We should not, probe them regarding this. So that is one of the very important thing what what you have said in your presentation, wonderfully placed. And, we should accept them. Many of the time it happens that the parents and the people who are working close to them, they understand the problem and they can cope up with the things. But when they enter into the other world, many people doesn't understand this condition. And then, how to cope up, with this kind of children, the community is also not knowing, and even the child is also not knowing. So really, that is a biggest problem. So nowadays, what is required is agitation and awareness about this kind of programs. In your initial part, you said some big names were there that this kind of people, ADHD, they were suffering with. And now they had given something great to the world. So we have to understand this aspect, very important aspect, what I feel. And we should not neglect, and we should not, consider them. They are not like a natural human beings, or their brains are not working, they are not developed. We should not have the thought like this. That is very important thing what you have said. Are very perfectly placed, because I have worked near about 2 years about, with this. Of course, I'm not a special trained in this kind of about how to communicate these children, but I learned with my experience while working with them, and I had given them a homeopathic medications for their improvement in the various activities of the brain. So that is how we were working. My one very important question is, sometimes these people doesn't know how to react with the emotion. Even they are getting happy, they show their aggressiveness or they start throwing something. That is what I have learned while working with them. So usually in the community, people consider aggressiveness is not so good, negative aspect. So how to cope up, when these people will be placed at some jobs or some other place, how they should control their emotions, one thing. And many of the times, even they are happy, they are becoming little aggressive. So how we can, deal with this kind of critical problems? Otherwise, yes, definitely, there should be a consideration. The governments should play a wonderful role in this, right, for their placement and for their development, for their education. And I think that is my question. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your presentation. Please comment on what I said. Thank you.
you so much for the great feedback. Yes, definitely this emotional control is a big issue, particularly for teenagers. What I've seen is that even when they're getting some medication, these medications together with the spike in hormones, something is happening at that age where we see the most problems with behavioral issues, basically. So that's why it's very important that we teach them from very early age, like this program, like I said, how your engine runs, so they know that they're getting already to the yellow, orange, red zone. So at that moment, they know, and they could, like step back before they get too overstimulated, too angry. Then it's too late. Then it's just not. So they know how to step back and know, okay, I'm getting overstimulated. I'm going to put my headphones on. I'm getting too upset. I will just leave and go to a quiet corner. I need movement. I go around and I run around or do something for a couple of minutes. Or I need my heavy blanket or my vest, or I put my hands underneath my legs and I, do like this, and then I can calm myself. It's very important that they know first how they're feeling, and second, what are the things that are helping them the most. So do they need something to fidget in their hands, like there is this fidget toy that we used, or something like this? I mean, we're doing that as well. You don't need to be neurodiverse. Sometimes when you're anxious, you do this with your hair or play something, you know what I mean? So we know intuitively, it's just that sometimes we need to find together with the child what would be that most appropriate way, and to help them over and over again while they're still young to recognize their patterns of behavior. So I know already it's too much for me, and I do what I have learned is the best for me. And when a temper tantrum happens or a behavioral accident, we go through the whole process and we say, okay, so here you got upset, you did this, you did this. And now you couldn't control yourself, so you just threw a tantrum. So next time, let's try this at this point. So it's just, the younger the child, the easier that is. It's just the way it is. Later on, when they're adults, if they have not learned this, it would be very problematic. And just a lot of patience and working and, knowing yourself and knowing what tools or what activities or whatever could help them. Like we're all doing it as well. Like it's not like I, for example, play with my hair. So I know that calms me down. It's not very professional, but I would also say that talking and educating the environment, this is why we have programs at different companies. I work for Johnson & Johnson, a huge drug company in the US. I work for the automotive industry in Germany, educating everybody in the world of work, about it, that people need sometimes this fidgeting or this movement just to calm down, or people cannot, often we're taught, especially in the Western world, look the person in the eyes, and I've done this program where I teach recruiters and people who are recruiting, applicants, to not look at this as something important, because people who have autism have a very, they struggle so much to look at you directly in the eyes. So I've especially done a program for the IT industry in Germany on teaching recruiters not to use standard body language as an evaluation of somebody's skills and knowledge. So there is, like we as an environment, work environment, school environment, need to learn as well and understand some of this. But this, looking in the eyes, oh, they didn't look at me in the eyes when they were at the interview, we would all almost immediately say, oh, they're not sure of themselves, they're shy, they're this, they're that. No, they just have a hard time looking at you in the eyes. They're a great programmer. Don't discriminate, basically.
My another question is a very important question that, many of the parents, they feel that my child is having ADHD or autism, but he should attend the regular normal school, and, that is how he will adapt, other students, and he will change his behavior. And they are a little reluctant to send them in a special schools. So what do you think about this?
Well, That's a huge debate. We have these inclusive schools in what I've seen in Germany and Canada, where I've worked, and where I consult the most. I would say there's pros and cons to both. It would be ideal that you have a school environment where the teachers are educated, willing, they have patience, resources, help to accommodate all students, because everybody does learn, like other students who are non-neurodiverse, they learn about neurodiversity from these children. They're better socialized when they're with other children. But if the school does not have this could backfire. So you cannot just have a child with, any kinds of special needs and just put them there and expect a miracle. You need, as teacher, as a school, to have therapists, in most cases occupational therapists. This is what I have done. Or you have to have a school aide, educational aide, who would work with 2 or 3 those children who have these kinds of challenges. So it really depends. It's a challenging question. If the school has everything they need, I would say that would be the optimal choice. But if not, I would say that just putting them in there and expecting that they will thrive on their own will not, without the right accommodation, modification of the environment, right education, mindset of the education of the teacher, but also time and resources. This would be, a failure and could result in some negative, This needs to be recognized at the government level and be supported through various programs. A lot of money. I know Canada, dedicates a lot of money to these programs, because you need additional teaching staff, you need different programs, you need, they would go to a therapist, and that's a lot of, resources dedicated to this. So if you don't have that, you cannot just expect them to, just pick it up from the other children. It will not happen. So that's my answer.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your wonderful explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm Dr.
Hi.
Sunil Pawar.
Hello.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. My question is this theory used by any English novelist through any character in his novel? That's my question. Because many novels are there which are written on psychological study of the characters. But this neurodiversity, according to me, is a new concept in literature. Is there any author who writes like this or represents any of the characters through his novel?
I'm not quite sure, like off the top of my head. You can, reach out to me via LinkedIn and I can research this. But I know for sure if you're looking at how Steve Jobs...
Yes. According to my knowledge, Salman Rushdie has used this theory through Midnight Children. But it is not perfectly conceptualized as neurodiversity, I think. I'm not sure.
Neurodiversity is a relatively newer term to, an umbrella term for a lot of these cognitive differences. I'm not quite sure about if they're represented anywhere in the literature, but I know that if you're looking at, for example, Steve Jobs, the way he is, or Elon Musk, like there is a movie on Steve Jobs, you will see some of this behavior. So that's something that comes to mind. I've recently seen the movie, and you can definitely see, yes, okay, he has some traits that you see with in individuals with autism. You're more than welcome to reach out via LinkedIn, and I will research into this. That's a great question and a very interesting one. It's very important as part of representation as well, to see, those people who are neurodiverse also in movies and literature everywhere. That also helps children and parents and community be more educated about the issues they're facing, the stigma, the way they think, the way they are. So that's also representation is really important everywhere. Feel free to reach out. I can look into this. I'm curious myself. Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. Myself, Dr. Karvande. I'm a teacher educator. Actually, neurodiverse students are there, children are there. It is accepted as normal distribution. But can we differentiate, or is there a demarcation line that which students can be termed as that they need a special treatment, that they means they should be admitted in special schools, and which can be admitted or treated in general schools, that is inclusive education. So that means children with special needs with special teachers and normal teachers. How can we differentiate? Because neurodiversity, just like your narration, your presentation, some are auditory learners, some are visual, some are kinesthetic, like that, so on and so forth. So it's natural. It is not a lacuna or something lacking there. But what is the demarcation line that the students that they tilt towards, say, with lower IQ or children with lower intelligence, that they cannot cope up with normal children? So how can we differentiate, or what is the threshold point? Please. Thank you.
You. For example, I'll give you an example from Canada that I'm most familiar with. There are 3 levels. So for if the child is experiencing not so many, challenges and the IQ level. So we're not looking at just the IQ level. We're looking at behavior with other children. And based on the whole picture, there's a whole set of tests that we're using. Together with the teachers, we're deciding if they're level 1, they would be included in the environment and they would have some support, go to a therapist, occupational therapist, after school, or, if they're level 2, they would already have an educational aid. That means that the teacher, apart from the teacher, that they would have already somebody working with them, and, for example, 2 or 3 other children. I cannot remember how many, but it's like, they would have an additional support. They would have their curriculum, for example, adapted, get different accommodations, and so on. If they're level 3, I would imagine that would, or maybe be what before was going to a special needs school. But in Canada, it is so that those children are still included with everybody else, and we're trying to have them in school. If this does not work, then we would go to like a school where you have a teacher and a therapist, where we work together with them, and after a while we do an assessment and we try to take them back into the school system. So we're looking at, as I said, the IQ, but the IQ and the way they perform at school is not the only measure. We're really looking at behavior. We're also looking at their growth and things like that. So everything, the whole set of tests that we do with them. And also sometimes they have, issues with movement, motion, those kinds of things. So we're looking at holistically at physical and psychological and emotional of the children, not just their IQ. So those are the 3 levels. And I worked a lot with children who are level 3. So they would come to a special school where they have one therapist would have just 2 kids that they were working with. So I was in charge of 2 children, and they would have a teacher. The teacher, we would be there with a school aide. So as I said, a special center for children. And then after a while, we would do an assessment and try them, go to the school, talk to the teacher, see the resources resources they have, say the accommodations that they would need, the modifications, and then we would try it out. Let's try 2 days a week they would go to school with us, 3 days they would go, to the regular school, and then try to reintroduce them into the school. But as I said, this requires a lot of effort and resources, government funded resources.
Thank you, ma'am. One more addition.
Yes.
Is there a standardized mechanism to place the students at these 3 levels? Thank you, madam.
Yes, there is. I don't know off the top of my head the whole set of tests that we were using, but there is a definitely yes, because that would then determine how many who would be where. So I think it's online as well. You can also reach out to me. I can send it to you. There is, yes, definitely. You cannot just do it willy-nilly. We need to know this and that. And then there would be some talk with the school, obviously, because not all schools were at the same level for resources. So we would determine that also based on the school and, the teacher and all of that, what they have. And some provinces in Canada have more resources than others. But definitely, yes, it's a very rigorous process. And then we do these tests again to just see if there's any progress, what's going on, and the whole, we're talking to the teacher, the parents, the children, we see how they interact. Like that's what was my job. That's why I had just 2 kids I was working with, because I had to observe them in play. And, when we go outside, when we do something that's unpredictable, when I ask them to do this or that, how they learn, how they react, how they behave with others, with adults, with children, with they would sometimes, I had a child that was very specific when it comes to foods. Like he would not eat anything from the fridge if a ketchup was in the whole fridge. So we need to work on 1 whole year on, what is this phobia with ketchup? So it's simple. It looks very simple, but it's very hard because sometimes these patterns and these ideas are very hard to understand. So that's what I'm saying. Yes, there is. There is. And Canada is really the best. Canada and Denmark. I did a 6-month exchange student program in Denmark. Those 2 countries have the best program when it comes to children with any kind of disability, when it comes to inclusion. So yes, and these tests are usually administered by an occupational therapist or physical therapist if there is some issues with balance, walking, or anything like that. So there is, yes, it's not. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. It's very interesting, and the subject is very close to me. So I shall be reaching you through LinkedIn. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be looking forward to it.
Good evening to all. Thank you, respected Principal Dr. A.B. Ambedkar, sir. Convener of this conference is Dr. Prakash Karad, sir, and all organizing committee members of this conference. It is a very nice presentation, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. This lecture is informative, knowledgeable, and interesting session. I have one question, ma'am. What are the learning style? What are the learning styles for neurodiverse students? This is the first question. Second question is, how does neurodivergent affect learning?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for your questions. I would say as far as the styles, unfortunately, I cannot give you a very clear answer because every person, even on the autism, you have a spectrum. So given that neurodiverse individuals are so different, the learning styles really needs to be adapted to their needs. But generally from what I have seen is that as with people who are non-neurodiverse, there is a preferred learning style. So I would say that you need to work very closely with the child to recognize what this style is and how they learn the best. And there is no one best way, really. I cannot give you that kind of a prescriptive answer, as it's so different, depends on the child, how they are and what they think, and how they prefer to learn, because some are really good with numbers, some are really good with words, some are really good with movement, and so if they're ADHD, some of them become great sportsmen and women, but on the other side, math is not they're not very capable of doing math. But you have some children who are really good at programming or math and learning with numbers and just writing those numbers down. But they're not really good at languages or something like that. So it really depends. On the other side, your second question, neurodiversity. Yeah, the neurodiversity impacts learning, and that. Yes, it impacts learning. That, as I said, that some, for example, have issues reading, some have challenges with numbers, some have challenges with just focusing. So different challenges for different children, but it does impact learning in various ways. Like I've worked with a child who has had great attention on detail, but they were not able to, learn numbers very easily. So you have to come up with ways to overcome this, and some of them just, remain weaknesses. For example, I speak 6 foreign languages, and I still, have a problem with math. So it's everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. So, you it does impact learning in various ways, be it challenges with numbers, with words, with movement, with attention. A lot of it is really attention related. Either they, really good at maintaining their attention focus, or they, after a few minutes, they're like, I'm just, overstimulated. That also depends on the environment, what kind of environment. Some children thrive in a more environment full of noise and sound and, like colors and those kinds. Some children, that's too much for them, so they cannot learn anything because there's just too much going on around them. So.
Wonderful explanation, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Principal Dr. Bedkar, sir.
पहले से ही था, पहले मैंने हैंड रेज किया है तो रह गया है. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. धन्यवाद.
Honorable Zaklina ma'am, very good morning, good evening to you. Respected Principal Dr. Bedkar sir. One thing I found that today's presentation was really unique one and innovative idea you have presented before us. Though I do not belong to the children education, but I believe in that. I've gone through the observation also. And really I appreciate the observation made by you for the neurodiversity and the learning processes. What I found that as the age of a children go on growing, automatically sometimes that diversity diminishes. And at the certain level of age, the students come into the normal, no diversity, neurodiversity observed, and they go on developing of their own. They are getting the learning part very easily in a single mode of education. But sometimes certain very part of the students, few percentage of students, children rather, up to the certain age, they are under the pressure of a neurodiversity. And what I found that in this neurodiversity learning, it is the strength of that students, that children, that he grows to this a limit of more than the, I think, say, more than the normal students. And that's why neurodiversity is a very good way of understanding the quality and the strength of the students. So, what do you differentiate between the age factor, ma'am? My question is that is there any age factor we have decided? The team has decided that up to certain level of age of children, this diversity automatically diminishes, and after the that beyond that age, is there any age factor differentiation? Please, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for this great question. I would say that until the age when the children reach puberty, there is a certain path, and then during puberty is this most turbulent, so to say, era, and then after that, I'm not sure if it's necessarily that the cognitive functioning changes, or they just have learned as they've matured how to manage their environment and themselves in a different way. So, because I still see, even with adults in the work, at work, that they still have some challenges, and you have adults with it also depends at how severe these challenges are. Obviously, if these challenges are more mild, then the age factor would be less relevant. But there is definitely, after the age of well, for girls is what I've seen a little bit earlier, because they mature earlier. For boys, it lasts longer, this period. After the age of 18 or 20, these cognitive challenges are not so prominent, but I would say that's because as you mature, you know what works for you, so you are better at kind of controlling yourself, some techniques and what to do, and as a child you just don't. So and I would say that as the brain matures, there could be also some of that, but definitely after puberty, you can see that during puberty we have the most issues, and then after that it's a little bit of a different story. And again, that also depends on the severity of the challenges. If they're really severe, some of them remain lifelong. If it's not so much, as you mature, you learn how to cope with them. There are some changes in the brain as well, and hormones and all of that. So it's much better after you go through this puberty. The same is what you see as we age. I have been also working with the elderly who are neurodiverse, and you can see as you hit a certain age and the brain is not functioning so well, that you see again some of those issues and challenges that you've had during puberty. So that's also another interesting thing.
Thank you, madam. The nice celebration for
Thank
this.
you.
And I think is there any reference or table for the age factor of the learning students?
I can reach out to me via LinkedIn. I have looked into this before, but I would say after puberty for sure.
Yeah, please. Okay. Thanks, madam. Definitely.
Yeah,
I will.
thank you.
Good. Thank you.
you. Yes, I would love to. Yes. Yeah. I love these kinds of, events. Thank you so much.
सर बैंक लिंक भेज दो ना सर.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you, ma'am.
Good luck.
Bye.
Thank you, respected Principal Bedkar, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.